Funny thing about the last battle, it never looks like one. It doesn't come with a trumpet or a crowd cheering your name. It sneaks up on you in the quiet, when you're tired, when you've got nothing left to give, when quitting feels like the only logical choice. That's when it hits. That's when the real war begins. Not out there, but in here. In that place where fear and faith keep switching seats. You've fought so many times before, haven't you? But this one feels different. This one feels heavier, colder, quieter. Because it's not about winning anymore. It's about surviving the part of you that wants to stop trying. It always happens right before something changes, doesn't it? That heaviness in your chest, that fog in your head, that voice whispering that it's pointless to keep going. You start to wonder if maybe it's a sign that you've reached the end. Maybe this is where it all stops, where the story fades to black. But what if that feeling isn't the end at all? What if it's just the noise before the breakthrough? Because the hardest battles never announce themselves. They disguise as exhaustion, confusion, hopelessness. They come dressed in doubt, right when you've got the least strength to fight. And that's how you know it's the final one. You think it's unfair. You've given everything, haven't you? You've carried the weight, taken the hits, smiled through pain, and still, life demands more. It wants one last piece of you. That's how it works. The test always comes when you think you've passed. Because growth doesn't check your comfort, it checks your breaking point. It pushes, and it waits, and it whispers. How bad do you want it? The cruel part is, most people quit right there. They mistake the final stretch for failure. They don't realize the wall in front of them is paper thin. It just looks solid because they're tired of pushing. You've seen people fall apart just before everything changes. You've watched them walk away seconds before the tide turns. That's how life works. It wears you down until surrender looks like relief. It tempts you to step back right before the light breaks through. Because the hardest battles always come before the breakthrough. Not because life enjoys punishing you, but because the universe wants to know if you'll hold the line when no one's watching. Anyone can fight when it's easy. Anyone can smile when things make sense. But to fight in silence, to stay when everything says, leave. That's where real strength lives. It's not about how many times you've been hit. It's about what you do after you've taken all the hits, and there's still one left to take. This last battle, it's not just about winning. It's about who you become while you fight it. It's where all the scars, all the losses, all the nights you almost gave up start to make sense. You don't see it now because pain blinds you. It fogs the lens until you start thinking maybe there's no purpose to any of it. But there is. Every blow you took was shaping you for this one. Every delay, every heartbreak, every failure was training you to face the kind of storm that breaks ordinary people. You just didn't realize it was preparation. You've got to understand something. The universe doesn't test your strength when you're fresh. It waits until you're drained, until you've got nothing left, and then it asks, do you still believe? That's the threshold moment. The line between the old you and the one waiting on the other side. The hardest battle isn't physical, it's mental, it's spiritual. It's the fight between who you were and who you're meant to be. And every time you feel like you can't go on, that's the sign that something's about to break, inside you, around you, or for you. Pain has a strange way of disguising transformation. It makes you think you're dying when really, you're being remade. That's why breakthroughs hurt so much. They require the death of the version of you that can't survive what's next. You have to let that part die tonight. The one that's scared, the one that doubts, the one that keeps replaying mistakes. That version's done its job. It got you here. But it can't go any further. The next part of the journey needs someone stronger, colder, quieter, wiser. Someone who doesn't beg for the storm to stop, but learns to move through it. And here's the irony. You won't see the breakthrough coming. It never looks like light. It looks like chaos. It looks like everything falling apart at once, because destruction always comes before creation. You think it's all over, but really, it's just rearranging. Everything collapsing isn't the end. It's the space being cleared for what's next. You're standing in that collapse right now, wondering why it hurts so much, but it's not punishment. It's transition. So this right here, this fight that feels impossible, this night that feels endless, that's the last one. The final test before the shift. The moment where most people give up and call it fate. But you're not most people. You've crawled through worse. You've survived nights you swore would kill you. You've seen the bottom and still found a way to rise. And now, here it is, the last battle. Not the biggest, but the most important. Because after this one, everything changes. But only if you keep swinging. Only if you refuse to fold when the darkness gets loud. Because the breakthrough isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for proof that you won't back down right before the light arrives. Strength isn't what people think it is. Everyone imagines it as loud, as visible, as something you can measure by how much noise you make when you win. But that's not real strength. Real strength is quiet. It's the kind that shows up when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, when there's nothing left to prove. It's what keeps you standing when your knees are shaking, what makes you whisper, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. People love to talk about courage, like it's something you show on a battlefield. But most battles happen in silence, behind closed doors, where your only weapon is endurance. You see, it's easy to fight when adrenaline's high, when people believe in you, when everything feels like a movie. But when the world goes quiet, when the spotlight fades, when it's just you and your thoughts, that's where the real fight begins. That's where strength stops being an act and becomes a choice. Every day, you get up even though you don't want to. Every time you keep going when it doesn't make sense. That's power. That's the kind of strength no one celebrates because they don't see it. They only see results, never the weight it took to reach them. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How silence can be so heavy. How it can crush you without saying a word. You start to feel invisible. Like your effort doesn't matter because no one notices. But that's the trap. That's the lie. Because silence isn't emptiness. It's the forge. It's where pressure shapes you, where your cracks become edges. You think you're breaking, but really, you're being built. Strength doesn't grow in applause, it grows in absence. It grows when you keep showing up after everyone's forgotten you. When you keep trying even when no one's cheering your name. The world teaches you to associate strength with victory. But victory doesn't define you. Resistance does. To hold your ground when everything in you screams to run. That's real power. To walk through a storm without announcing it. To fight demons no one believes exist. That's what makes you unshakable. Because strength isn't about how loud you roar. It's about how long you can whisper to yourself, "Not yet," when life keeps throwing punches. It's about how many times you can rebuild the same pieces of yourself after everything falls apart again. There's something hauntingly beautiful about the ones who endure in silence. You can see it in their eyes, the exhaustion mixed with defiance. They don't need validation. They don't need to prove anything anymore. They've gone through too much to care about being understood. That's what silence does. It strips away everything fake, everything loud, everything performative, until all that's left is what's real. And what's real can't be broken. It can bend, it can bleed, but it doesn't shatter. That's what true strength looks like. Not unbreakable, but unyielding. You've probably noticed that the moments you feel weakest are the same moments that define you later. The nights you cried in secret, the mornings you got up anyway. The decisions you made when no one was watching. That's your foundation. That's where your strength hides. You don't see it because it doesn't announce itself. It's not supposed to. Strength doesn't ask for recognition. It demands presence. It's the invisible force that keeps you moving when logic says stop. The thing about silence is, it's honest. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't distract you. It forces you to face what's left when everything else fades. That's why so many people fear it. Because in silence, there's no one to impress, no noise to drown out your doubts. It's just you and your truth. And that truth will break you before it builds you. But that's the point. That's where transformation happens. Not when you win, but when you endure. When you stop waiting for rescue and start realizing that surviving is the victory. Strength in silence isn't glamorous. It's raw, it's messy, it's lonely. It's the kind of fight that leaves scars no one can see. But those scars, they're proof. Proof that you stayed when others left. Proof that you kept your soul intact when the world tried to steal it. That's not weakness. That's the purest form of strength there is. You'll know you've found that kind of power when you stop needing to announce your pain. When you stop explaining why you're tired. When you stop looking for applause and start appreciating the quiet that once scared you. That's when you understand. Silence isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the space where you discover that you don't need validation to be powerful. You just need resilience. So when you feel unseen, when it feels like no one notices the fight you're in, remember that silence is where warriors are made. It's where endurance becomes identity. Every quiet struggle, every lonely night, every hidden tear, it all counts. Because real strength doesn't echo, it endures. It breathes quietly in the shadows, waiting for the moment it's needed. And when that moment comes, it doesn't ask for attention. It simply stands. Funny thing about pain, it doesn't knock before it enters. It just walks right in, sits at your table, eats your food, and stares at you like it owns the place. You try to ignore it at first, pretend it's not there, talk louder, laugh harder, drown it out with noise. But pain's patient. It waits. It doesn't need to raise its voice. It just lingers, whispering in the back of your mind, reminding you it's not going anywhere until it's done with you. Most people hate it for that. They think pain's the enemy, the villain. But the truth is, pain's the only one that tells the truth. It doesn't sugarcoat, doesn't flatter, doesn't lie to make you feel better. Pain shows you what's real, whether you want to see it or not. You see, everyone wants growth, but no one wants the process. They want the transformation without the tearing, the breakthrough without the breaking. But that's not how it works. Pain is the sculptor. It chisels away at who you think you are until what's left is who you were meant to be. Every cut, every crack, every bruise, it's all part of the design. The problem is, people keep running before the masterpiece is finished. They feel the first sting and think it's punishment. But sometimes pain isn't there to destroy you. It's there to wake you up. To remind you that you've been living numb, surviving on autopilot, pretending everything's fine when it's not. The thing about pain is, it doesn't care about timing. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It shows up when it wants, and it stays as long as it needs to. It doesn't ask for permission to teach you lessons you never signed up for. But oh, how it teaches. It teaches patience, humility, empathy, the kind of lessons comfort could never teach. It breaks your ego, strips you of pride, leaves you naked in front of your own reflection until you finally admit, I need to change. And that's when the real work begins. That's when you stop blaming and start listening. Because beneath the screaming and the burning, pain's trying to tell you something. It's saying, this version of you can't go where you're headed. It's almost poetic, isn't it? How pain hurts you just enough to make you feel alive again. You start noticing things differently. The air tastes sharper. The world looks heavier. You realize how fragile people are, how temporary everything is. Pain gives you eyes that see through illusions. You stop believing the smiles that don't reach the eyes. You start recognizing desperation behind confidence. You learn to read people the way you wish someone had read you. Pain teaches you empathy through destruction. It breaks your heart open so it can hold more. But let's be honest, it's not a gentle teacher. It doesn't use kind words or soft hands. It drags you through the fire and watches to see what burns away. That's how it works. It doesn't test your strength. It reveals it. You think you're weak until pain shows you you're not. You think you're done until pain forces you to start again. It's cruel, but necessary. Because you don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when you're cornered, when every breath feels like defiance. When giving up seems easier, but something inside you refuses. That's pain's real gift. It awakens that part of you that won't die quietly. You start to understand that the goal isn't to escape pain. It's to learn from it, to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Pain's not interested in your pity. It's interested in your transformation. It doesn't want you broken. It wants you rebuilt. Stronger, wiser, quieter. It wants you to stop chasing comfort and start chasing purpose. Because purpose, real purpose, is born in suffering. Not in the kind you brag about, but in the kind that no one sees. The nights you cry in silence. The mornings you rise pretending you're fine. That's where the fire is built. That's where resilience grows teeth. You'll notice something strange once you start embracing it instead of fighting it. Pain loses its power. It stops being this monster you run from and becomes a mentor you listen to. You stop fearing the bad days because you understand they're carving something inside you that peace never could. You begin to realize that everything you thought was breaking you was actually shaping you for what's next. You stop asking for an easier life and start asking for a stronger spirit. Pain changes your relationship with the world. You stop expecting it to be kind. You start appreciating the rare moments of peace, the small gestures of love, the quiet kindness that slips through the cracks. You stop needing grand gestures because you've seen how fragile they are. You start valuing truth over comfort, growth over approval, and solitude over noise. You stop chasing things that numb you because you finally understand that numbness isn't peace. It's denial. So you sit with your pain. You let it speak. You let it break the things that needed breaking. You stop running. And in that stillness, something shifts. You realize the fire that once burned you now fuels you. You start moving differently, talking differently, thinking differently. You stop begging for escape and start walking with the storm. Because you know it's leading you somewhere. You don't fear pain anymore because you've seen what it creates. It doesn't destroy you. It defines you. You ever notice how silence feels heavier when something's coming? Like the air itself starts to listen, like every tick of the clock is holding its breath. People think chaos announces itself with noise, sirens, screams, alarms, but real chaos, it creeps in quietly. It hides in the spaces between heartbeats, in the way the wind shifts, in the gut feeling you try to ignore. That's the funny thing about intuition. It's the only warning you'll ever get, but most people laugh it off until it's too late. You call it paranoia, but deep down, you know. You always know when something's about to happen. You just pretend you don't, because the truth is more terrifying than the unknown. See, this is the part most people miss. The trap doesn't need to be clever. It just needs you to be comfortable. That's all it takes. Comfort is the oldest trick in the book. It dulls your senses, softens your focus, makes you believe you're safe. You stop questioning, stop paying attention, stop fighting. That's when it tightens, the invisible noose, and you won't even feel it until you try to move. You'll think everything's fine because the chains are made of gold. They glimmer, they shine, they make you proud to wear them. But they're still chains, aren't they? That's how the trap works. It gives you what you want so you won't notice what you're losing. Everyone's walking around thinking they're free, but freedom isn't about movement. It's about awareness. You can dance inside a cage all your life and still think you're flying if you never look up. People trade awareness for pleasure every single day. They sell their attention to distractions, their peace to noise, their truth to approval. They call it living, but it's not. It's drifting, sleepwalking through a system that feeds on blindness. You ever wonder why so many people are tired even when they rest? Because their soul's exhausted from pretending it's alive. The trap doesn't come with alarms. It comes with opportunities. Too good to be true, too perfect to question. You'll think it's a blessing when it's actually bait. That's the genius of it. It doesn't catch the weak. It catches the unaware. It knows your patterns, your weaknesses, your desires. It knows what you crave when you're lonely, what you dream when you're desperate. It doesn't force you. It invites you. You'll walk right into it with a smile because it feels right. And that's the point. The perfect trap feels like destiny until it's too late to escape. You might think you'd recognize it. But traps don't always look dangerous. Sometimes they look like love. Sometimes they sound like opportunity. Sometimes they wear the face of hope. The best traps aren't built to scare you. They're built to soothe you. They make you trust them, depend on them, need them. Until the moment you realize everything you thought was saving you was actually sinking you. And by then, you're too deep to climb out. That's why awareness is the rarest form of strength. Not power, not wealth, not fame. Awareness. Because awareness can see the strings before they pull. It can sense the shift before the fall. It can smell the lie in the sweetest voice. Most people are so desperate to belong that they'll ignore the signs even when the truth is screaming in their face. They'll say, "It can't be a trap," because admitting it would mean everything they built was a lie. So they smile, keep walking, and call it faith. But faith without discernment is suicide with good manners. Every trap starts with a whisper. You deserve this. And you do, don't you? You've worked hard, suffered enough, waited your turn. So you take it thinking it's your reward. But not every open door is divine. Some are baited. Some are tests. Some are exits disguised as entries. The universe doesn't test your strength with storms. It tests it with stillness. It watches how you act when everything looks perfect. That's where most people fall. not in the dark, but in the light that blinds them. The clever thing about traps is they don't need to close fast. They just need to wait. Time does the rest. You stop noticing the walls when they move slowly. You stop fighting when comfort becomes routine. You stop questioning when the pain fades. And before you know it, your freedom has turned into a story you tell yourself before bed. I could leave any time I want. But you won't. You can't. Because the trap isn't around you. It's inside you now. It's in the way you think, the way you justify, the way you fear losing what you never really owned. Maybe that's the biggest trick of all. The trap doesn't have to catch your body. It just has to catch your mind. Once it owns your thoughts, your choices, your emotions, you're done. You'll guard the cage yourself, decorate it, defend it, even call it home. That's how deep it goes. That's how easily humans surrender. They think as long as they're comfortable, they're free. But comfort is the most elegant form of captivity. It doesn't force, it seduces. It doesn't bind, it convinces. And that's why so many never see it coming. So the next time something feels too easy, too perfect, too peaceful, listen closely. The silence before a storm always sounds calm. The sweetest poison always tastes divine. The most dangerous traps never look like cages, they look like choices. And if you can't tell the difference, maybe you were never free in the first place. It's always the same story, isn't it? People start losing focus right when it matters the most. They get tired, distracted, seduced by the noise. The finish line is right there, but they can't see it through the fog of exhaustion. They think the battle's over because the pain has become familiar. They confuse fatigue with finality. But the truth is, the closer you get to the end, the more dangerous the distractions become. They're not random, they're strategic. The noise comes to pull you away just when the silence starts revealing the truth. That's the trick. The world doesn't want you to win. It wants you to wander. You see, the moment you're closest to something real, something shifts, the air changes, people turn cold, obstacles appear out of nowhere. Suddenly, everything that used to be easy starts breaking down. The calls stop, the plans fail, the hope flickers. You start to think maybe it's not meant to be. That's when it happens. The pull to quit. The voice that says, "You've done enough." But you haven't. Not yet. You're just near the point where the pressure becomes unbearable because it's about to release. That's what most people don't understand. The universe doesn't test you to break you. It tests you to see if you'll finish. Everyone loves the idea of fighting until they realize how long the war actually is. They romanticize the start, the courage, the motivation, the thrill of beginning. But nobody prepares you for the middle. The middle is where the weak give up and the strong grow quiet. It's where doubt becomes louder than purpose. It's where nothing works, and you start questioning everything you believed. That's when most people surrender. They think silence means abandonment, but silence is just the space before transformation. That's why the world feels heavier right before something shifts. It's not punishing you, it's refining you. You've got to understand, quitting never feels wrong in the moment. It feels logical. It feels safe. It feels like peace. That's how it traps you. The feeling of relief masks the theft of purpose. You think you're escaping the struggle, but you're really walking away from victory. And it's funny, isn't it? The same people who swore they'd die for their dream are the first to bury it alive. Not because they couldn't make it, but because they didn't realize how close they already were. The truth is, the finish line doesn't announce itself. There's no drum roll, no lightning in the sky, no sudden burst of light saying, "You made it." It looks exactly like failure. That's the cosmic joke. The moment right before you break through will feel identical to the moment right before you give up. Same exhaustion, same doubt, same silence. The difference is in your choice. One step more, one night more, one breath more, and the entire story changes. But you'll never know unless you take it. People think strength is about power. It's not. Strength is about endurance. It's the ability to keep going when the mind begs you to stop. When every part of you screams for rest, and you keep walking anyway. That's real strength. It's not loud, it's not pretty, and it doesn't get applause. But it builds something that noise never could: resilience. That unshakable core that can stand in storms and still not fall apart. That's what's being tested right now. Not your talent, not your potential, your endurance. You see, the last part of any journey is always the loneliest. Not because no one cares, but because no one can walk it for you. It's yours and yours alone. People will cheer for your start and celebrate your victory, but the middle, the fight, the doubt, the silence belongs to you. That's where your character is carved. That's where destiny decides if you're worthy. Every great story has that one night where the hero almost gave up. This is yours. The temptation to quit is just proof that you're still in motion. You can't be tempted to stop if you're already standing still. So if it hurts right now, if it feels unbearable, that's the sign. You're close. The system fights hardest when it's losing control. Darkness grows louder before it dies. Every time you think it's over, it's really just the breaking point. And if you can survive that moment, you change everything. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards endurance. It waits until the last second to see who's still standing. Because everyone can start. Few can stay. Fewer can finish. That's why it's called the last battle. Because it's not about how strong you were at the beginning. It's about how much you can still hold when everything else has been stripped away. You've already come too far for this pain to be meaningless. The fire's not burning to destroy you. It's burning to reveal you. The last battle isn't physical. It's psychological. It's the war between the version of you that wants comfort and the version that craves purpose. One of them has to die tonight. One of them won't make it to tomorrow. And that's why this moment feels so heavy, so personal, so final. Because it is. This is where people either collapse or rise. Where they stop pretending and finally decide what they're made of. Every scar, every failure, every heartbreak, it all led here. To this night, this fight, the last one, and you already know what it's asking from you.